The history of Malaysia dates back to the earliest traces of human civilization, when the region was highly suitable for human settlement due to its natural resources and geographical location. Located in the Southeast Asian peninsula, the presence of rivers, glaciers, and natural harbors in the areas of present-day Malaysia provided opportunities for early humans to hunt, fish, and practice primitive agriculture. By around 2000 BC, the inhabitants were not only engaged in basic agricultural activities, but also began to use pottery, stone tools, and early iron tools. The indigenous people lived in small tribes along riverbanks or near forests, where they hunted, fished, and grew native crops for food. Sea routes and rivers were of great importance to early populations. These routes provided not only local trade opportunities, but also a means of reaching the early trading centers of China and India. Not only goods, but also cultural and intellectual influences were transferred through trade relations. For example, Indian influences produced significant changes in local arts, agricultural practices, and social structures. Trade relations with China enabled the incorporation of iron, porcelain, and precious stones into the local economy. During this period, local tribes and small states had different customs, government structures, and religious beliefs. The role of local leaders was to guide the tribes, divide land, and organize trade relations. Tribal alliances were often formed to control regional resources or to fend off enemy attacks. Religious beliefs mostly revolved around natural phenomena and the elements of land, water, and forest. Worship and festivals were celebrated according to the seasons, crops, and natural elements. By the 1st century BCE, early influences from Hinduism and Buddhism began to appear in the coastal regions. Religious and cultural teachings were transmitted by Indian traders and explorers, which led to the adoption of new cultural and social norms by local rulers and merchants. These influences were not limited to religion, but were also seen in the arts, architecture, agriculture, and trade relations. The role of classes, tradesmen, and religious leaders increased in local society, and a rudimentary political and social structure emerged. In the early period, economic activities were largely based on agricultural production, hunting, fishing, and river trade. Small markets were established along the rivers, where local goods and marine products were exchanged. Local people not only worked for their survival, but also participated in coastal trade and local social networks, which led to commercial skills and social cohesion. Historical evidence suggests that cultural exchanges also took place between different tribes during this period. Through marriage, religious ceremonies, and trade contacts, different tribes and settlers came closer to each other and exchanged information, arts, and products. Therefore, the early social and cultural foundations of Malaysia were strengthened by a combination of different elements, which became the basis for later kingdoms and trading centers. From the 1st century AD to the 14th century, the Malaysian region began to gain commercial, political, and cultural importance. The natural harbors and river routes along the peninsula's coastline made it one of the major trading centers of Southeast Asia. The region began to establish trade relations with traders from China, India, and other Australasian countries, which not only strengthened the economy, but also made the local social structure more complex. Local rulers organized military forces to protect trading centers and established coastal urban arrangements. Small tribes and states settled around their trading centers, where economic and cultural development was driven by the movement of local and international traders. Precious metals, spices, porcelain, textiles, and other products were exchanged at trading centers, and these became important sources of local economic power. After the 7th century, the Malacca region gained international trade importance, which strengthened the relationship between the local rulers and the trading community. Local rulers established systems to protect trade routes and collect taxes, which led to the formation of empires. The coastal trading centers not only provided the local people with wealth, but also exposed them to international culture and knowledge. The Malacca Empire reached its peak in the 13th and 14th centuries. During this period, local politics, trade relations, and religious influences became intertwined. Local rulers, through their military might and political acumen, dominated coastal areas and trade routes, providing a safe and stable environment for local and international traders. Culturally, this period saw a fusion of different ethnic and religious elements. Arab, Persian, Chinese, and Indian trading communities, along with local Malay tribes, not only established trade relations, but also left their mark on local society, dress, cuisine, arts, and religious practices. This fusion made Malacca a diverse and international hub, where people of different cultures and languages came into contact with each other. In addition to trade, local government also developed agriculture, mining, and fishing. Small forts and administrative centers were established along the rivers, which not only protected the local population, but also regulated the exchange of trade products. Local leaders enforced local laws to establish order in their territories and began to collect taxes on trade, which strengthened local kingdoms. By the end of the 13th century, the Malacca Empire had established itself in Southeast Asia through political unity, commercial expertise, and social harmony. This period was not only a period of development for local kingdoms, but also provided the foundation for regional trade systems and cultural integration before the arrival of European powers. Throughout this period, the coastal and inland regions of Malaysia became intertwined in strong commercial, social, and cultural ties. Relations between local rulers, traders, and various ethnic and religious groups strengthened the country's social structure and political stability. The effects of this period proved to be a catalyst for later Islamic and European empires. In the 14th century, the influence of Islam began to grow in the coastal areas of Malaysia. Trade relations with Arab and Persian traders exposed local rulers and people to the principles of Islam. Initially, Islam was mostly confined to trading centers and ports, but local rulers recognized its importance and began to incorporate it into their state policy. During the reign of Sultan Muzaffar Shah, Islam became the official religion of the Malacca Sultanate. This move not only strengthened the country religiously, but also had an impact on trade and political relations. Islamic courts were established within the Sultanate, mosques were built, and religious education began to be provided in madrasas. At the same time, Islamic principles were incorporated into local laws and courts, which promoted justice and fairness in local society. The arrival of Islam brought about significant changes in local culture and society. The value of education and knowledge increased, and in addition to religious education, madrasas began to teach mathematics, astronomy, and literature. Islamic influences began to appear in local arts, music, and architecture. Mosques were not only centers of worship, but also became centers of education, social interaction, and government administration. The Malacca Sultanate expanded its trade relations and established the country as a major trading center in Southeast Asia. Arab, Indian, and Chinese merchants, as well as Middle Eastern merchants, came to the Malacca ports, which not only led to economic growth, but also to cultural and intellectual exchanges. This commercial development helped to stabilize the local economy, collect taxes and revenues, and increase the military and political power of the Sultanate. During the Sultanate, relations between the local population, Arab, Persian, Chinese, and Indian communities grew stronger. These groups came closer together through trade, marriage, religious ceremonies, and cultural exchange, which strengthened Malaysia's diverse culture and social cohesion. In the 14th and 15th centuries, the socio-political stability of the Malacca Sultanate ensured the security of the region. Local forts, defense systems, and administrative centers not only protected trading centers, but also maintained public life and social order. During this period, local rulers promoted trade and agricultural development in their territories, as well as education and religion, which allowed various sectors of the country to develop simultaneously. The cultural and commercial convergence during the Malacca Sultanate made Malaysia a strong and internationally recognized center. These influences also proved to be the foundation for later European occupation and British rule. This period was not only one of religious and cultural development, but also of political and economic stability, which strengthened the country's foundations and paved the way for future development. In 1511, the Portuguese conquered Malacca, marking the beginning of European influence there. Portuguese rulers not only gained control over trading centers and ports, but also limited the political power of local rulers. They built forts, established military posts to protect ports, and imposed tariffs on trade routes. During the Portuguese occupation, local government decisions often aligned with European interests, weakening the autonomy of local rulers. The Portuguese integrated the ports of Malacca with the European trade system, bringing new goods, precious metals, and commercial knowledge into the country. The local economy underwent changes as the Portuguese government established control over local agricultural production, fishing, and trade. However, the local people and rulers often resisted Portuguese laws and taxes, sometimes leading to local rebellions. In 1641, after the Portuguese power had weakened, the Dutch East India Company took control of Malacca. The Dutch rulers improved and organized the trading system, concluded trade agreements with local governments, and established military arrangements to protect the ports. The Dutch organized local agriculture and mining and promoted the involvement of Chinese merchants in the trading centers, which increased commercial activity and strengthened the economy. The Dutch period also brought changes to the lifestyle of the local population. New markets, neighborhoods, and social centers were established around trading centers. The value of education and knowledge increased, and European influences began to appear in local arts, crafts, and architecture. Local rulers collaborated with the Dutch to maintain their political power, which created a balance between local and international relations. During this period, international influences grew in local culture, as well as in trade centers. Arab, Indian, Chinese, Portuguese, and Dutch trading communities left their mark on local society, fostering a fusion of different cultures, languages, and customs. This fusion provided the cultural foundations for later British colonialism and the modern era. During European occupation, local agriculture, mining, and trading centers were regulated, and the empire's finances were strengthened through taxation. Military forts and port facilities provided protection for the local population and international traders, while political influence, as well as social and cultural development, continued. From the 16th to the 18th centuries, Malacca and the coastal regions of Malaysia became a center of European trade influence and local cultural fusion. Portuguese and Dutch occupation left lasting effects on the local economy, government, and social structure, which proved to be the foundation for later British rule and modern developments. In the 19th century, British imperial influence in Malaysia began to grow. British rulers united Malacca, Penang, and Singapore under their commercial and political system known as the Straits Settlements. In these areas, British administrations established legislation, taxation, military protection, and trade structures to not only protect British interests, but also maintain relations with the local governments and populations. During this period, British imperialism invested in agricultural and industrial sectors. The production of tea, sugarcane, cocoa, and rubber was regulated, and a system was created to export them to the world market. For this purpose, the British government brought in Chinese and Indian laborers who worked alongside the local population and contributed to economic development. This ethnic and cultural mix became more complex, and relationships between different civilizations were established in society. This period brought both challenges and opportunities for the local population. The political autonomy of local rulers was weakened, but they were incorporated into the local administration and revenue system. The influence of British laws, education, and judiciary was noticeable in the social structure. The British administration emphasized the establishment of schools, colleges, and educational institutions, which increased educational awareness among the local youth and increased job and business opportunities through modern education. Race relations and social cohesion became a major issue during this period. British rulers sought to maintain divisions between the local Malay, Chinese, and Indian communities to facilitate government control. This resulted in problems of racial segregation, dominance of certain business sectors by dominant groups, and social divisions, which later influenced the country's political and social policies. The effects of British colonialism also affected local culture and society. European elements were incorporated into art, architecture, and urban planning, while local communities preserved their identities while maintaining religious and cultural celebrations. Trading centers and ports became more established, and the local economy became more integrated with the international market. This period also marked the beginning of the independence movements. Local leaders and enlightened individuals began to develop political consciousness against British rule. Various organizations and committees were formed, working for indigenous rights, autonomy, and social reforms. By the beginning of the 20th century, these movements had become strong, which would later provide the basis for the Japanese occupation in 1941 and the subsequent struggle for independence. During British rule, Malaysia's economy, education, legal system, and social structure developed in a new and orderly manner. Although political autonomy remained limited, commercial growth, social and educational reforms, and ethnic and cultural integration strengthened the country's foundations and prepared it for the major changes of the 20th century. Biam. In 1941, during World War II, the Japanese army occupied Malaysia. The occupation brought about drastic and immediate change as the Japanese rulers established complete control over the local administration and economy. Trading centers, ports, and basic infrastructure became subordinate to Japanese military interests, and the local population was placed under strict restrictions and discipline. The economy was severely affected during the Japanese occupation. Commercial and agricultural production was subordinated to the needs of the Japanese military, and local farmers and laborers were forced to work hard and with few resources. Local people were forced to live in an environment of hunger, disease, and fear. Japanese rulers also established control over local language, education, and religious institutions in order to strengthen their ideology and administrative system. During this time, local people began resistance movements. Local independence organizations, members of the Chinese and Malay communities, and remnants of the British Army participated in activities against the Japanese occupation. These resistance movements ranged from small-scale activities to large-scale military offensives aimed at limiting Japanese influence and protecting the rights of the local population. After the end of World War II, in 1945, the Japanese occupation ended and the British government regained control of Malaysia. The effects of the war severely affected local society, economy, and infrastructure, which the British government initiated reform measures to restore. During this time, local political consciousness grew, and different ethnic and cultural groups formed political parties to represent themselves. After 1945, local independence movements became stronger. Local leaders, youth, and intellectuals intensified political, economic, and social struggles against British rule. Various political parties and committees were formed, working for the demand for independence, local autonomy, and equal rights. In the 1950s, these movements became so strong that the British government began negotiations with the local leadership. As a result of these negotiations, Malaysia gained independence from Britain on 31st August 1957. This independence was a new beginning for the country, as local leaders now had the power to make their own autonomy, political decisions, and socio-economic policies. After independence, the country established a federal system, several states, and a strong central government to provide a solid foundation for racial harmony, social justice, and economic development. The Japanese occupation and the struggle for independence marked a new turning point in Malaysia's history. It was a period of hardship, resistance, and the emergence of political consciousness, which saw the country emerge as an independent and strong state in 1957. The impact of this period would shape the country's political, social, and economic policies for decades to come, and laid the foundation for the emergence of modern Malaysia. After gaining independence in 1957, Malaysia established a federation of states under a federal system, in which each state was given limited autonomy, and a strong central government was established. The aim of this federation was to promote racial harmony, political stability, and economic development in the country. Independent Malaysia, through its first government, initiated various projects to build infrastructure, improve the education system, and develop industry. In 1963, Sarawak, Sabah, and Singapore joined the federation, increasing the country's geographical boundaries and political influence. However, The secession of Singapore in 1965 changed the country's political landscape, but the federal system and the strength of the central government remained. During this time, the government adopted comprehensive policies to balance racial relations, create equality in economic opportunities, and develop the education and health sectors. For economic development, the government focused on the agricultural sector, industrial development, and international trade, the production of rubber and pulp products, and the export of sugar, cotton, and other agricultural commodities stabilized the country's economy. In the industrial sector, manufacturing, mining, and oil and gas production increased the country's income. Meanwhile, infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, railways, and ports helped strengthen the country's economic connectivity. For social and cultural development, the government focused on educational reforms, health facilities, and urban planning. The establishment of schools and colleges raised the level of education, while hospitals and clinics improved the quality of healthcare. To promote ethnic and religious harmony, the government promoted cultural events and international exchanges, which maintained unity and harmony in society. During the 20th century, Malaysia achieved political stability, economic growth, and strong ties with the global market. Various political parties and organizations were active at the local and federal levels, which increased public participation and political awareness. During this period, the country achieved significant growth in international trade, the industrial sector, and the education system, which reduced the economic gap between urban and rural areas and improved the overall standard of living. During this time, Malaysia maintained social harmony while maintaining ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity. Relations between the local Malay, Chinese, Indian, and other ethnic communities were strengthened, and economic and social cooperation was promoted through joint development projects. In the 1990s, Malaysia began to emphasize technology, infrastructure, and international investment. The construction of smart cities, industrial zones, and trade centers modernized the country's economy. During this period, international relations strengthened and the country established commercial and diplomatic influence in various parts of the world. Despite the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Malaysia managed to emerge from the crisis through economic reforms, international cooperation, and an investment plan. This strengthened the country's financial, industrial, and commercial foundations and opened new avenues for economic growth. This period was crucial for the foundation of modern Malaysia: economic development, educational reforms, social cohesion, and international relations. During this period, the country not only achieved domestic development, but also strengthened its international recognition. In the early 2000s, Malaysia made technology, infrastructure, and industrial development its national priorities. The country invested in information technology, telecommunications, and the software industry, which strengthened the foundations of the economy and increased the country's recognition in the global market. The construction of modern industrial zones, smart cities, and commercial centers in major cities such as Kuala Lumpur accelerated the country's growth and opened the door to foreign investment. During this period, Malaysia also made significant reforms in the education, health, and social welfare sectors. Universities, technical institutes, and research centers were established, which raised the educational level of the younger generation and increase the number of skilled people in the fields of technology and business. In the health sector, the quality of hospitals, clinics, and emergency services was improved, which increased public welfare. After 2008, the global financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 also affected Malaysia. During COVID-19, the country took urgent measures in the health, economic, and social sectors. Vaccination programs, lockdown measures, and expansion of health infrastructure helped the country cope with the pandemic. In the economic sector, the government provided packages for small and medium-sized businesses, the agricultural sector, and industrial production, which stabilized the country's economy. In the 21st century, sustainability and environmental protection also became important national priorities. The government initiated forest protection, water resources planning, and renewable energy projects. Urban planning incorporated green zones, environmental protection, and modern transportation projects, laying a solid foundation for the country's long-term development. Malaysia also strengthened its presence in international relations. Trade and diplomatic relations were developed with China, Japan, South Korea, Europe, and countries in the Middle East. International investment, trade agreements, and participation in international organizations increased the country's global importance. Politically, Malaysia in the 21st century maintained a democratic process, a federal system, and ethnic and religious harmony. Various political parties and movements remained active at the local and federal levels, increasing public participation and political awareness. Relations between ethnic and religious groups remained harmonious, and unity and equality were promoted in the country through joint development projects. By 2025, Malaysia has become a strong and stable country, economically, socially, and technologically. The country's economy, education, health, and infrastructure have developed to world standards. Technology, industrial sectors, and international relations have made Malaysia an important center of Southeast Asia. Overall, from the earliest human settlements in Malaysia's history to the present day in 2025, the country has evolved through diverse cultural, religious, and ethnic integration, trading posts, European and Japanese occupations, independent struggles, and modern development projects to become a strong and internationally recognized state. The country's development story is not only one of economic and political progress, but also of social cohesion, educational and cultural advancement, and global influence. The history of Malaysia is a story of a long, varied, and profound journey, spanning from the earliest human settlements to the modern era in 2025. The country's geographical features, natural resources, and coastal ports have been the basis of its commercial importance since ancient times. During the early periods of human settlement, indigenous tribes established their own social, agricultural, and community systems, which laid the foundation of the country. From the 1st century to the 14th century, Malaysia established its importance in Southeast Asia through trading posts and local kingdoms. Relations between local rulers and international traders strengthened society, culture, and economy. During this period, various ethnic and religious elements had a significant impact on local culture and arts, creating a diverse and international environment. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Islam began to spread through the Malacca Sultanate, which strengthened the country's religious, cultural, and social foundations. Islam not only incorporated religious principles into local society, but also revolutionized education, the judiciary, the arts, and architecture. Trading centers and international relations strengthened the country's economy and made it an important center of Southeast Asia. From the 16th to the 18th centuries, European occupation, Portuguese and Dutch, influenced the country's political, commercial, and social structure. European military fortifications, trade systems, and port arrangements influenced local rulers and trading communities. During this period, the economy, agriculture, and trade relations strengthened ties with the global market, while cultural integration further broadened the country's social identity. Paragraph. In the 19th century, British rule established a modern administrative, educational, and economic system in the country. British rulers invested in agricultural and industrial sectors, and the influx of Chinese and Indian laborers increased ethnic and cultural mixing. During this time, local political consciousness and independence movements began to emerge, which later became part of the independence struggle in the 20th century. During World War II, the Japanese occupation, 1941 to 1945, brought severe hardship to the country, but local resistance and the British withdrawal laid the foundation for independence. On 31st of August 1957, Malaysia gained independence from Britain, and a union of states was established under a strong federal system, providing the basis for racial harmony, political stability, and economic development. After independence, the country focused on federalism, industrial and agricultural development, education, health, and social reform. The unification of Sarawak, Sabah, and Singapore in 1963 and the secession of Singapore in 1965 further defined the country's political landscape. In the 20th century, Malaysia achieved significant achievements in the areas of economic development, international trade, and racial and social harmony. In the 21st century, Malaysia has made significant progress in technology, infrastructure, education, health, sustainability, and global relations. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, the country has taken effective measures in the health, economy, and social sectors. Thanks to strengthening international relations, the development of industrial zones, and social harmony, Malaysia has become a strong, stable, and globally recognized state by 2025. Overall, Malaysia's history is a continuous tale of cultural fusion, trading posts, European and Japanese occupations, independence struggles, and modern development projects. The country is not only economically and politically important in Southeast Asia, but also sets a unique example globally for its ethnic, religious, and cultural harmony.